The most impactful things you do are often the things you don't do. The distractions you don't indulge in, the toxic people you choose not to engage with, the clutter you refuse to hold on to, the opportunities you turn down to make room for the right ones, the relationships you leave because they no longer align with your values, the fights you walk away from to preserve your peace. See, choices like these may seem small, but they have the power to transform your life. In fact, it's often the things we don't do that bring us greater clarity, focus, and fulfillment. So I have a question for you. Have you ever had an opportunity come your way that seemed great, but deep down you knew it wasn't the right fit for you? Maybe it was a work project or a social invitation or something you thought you should do. I want you to sit with that for a moment. Notice how that felt. Did you feel conflicted? Did you feel guilty, maybe? Or maybe relieved? Whatever your answer is, reflecting on the small choices we make every day can have a huge impact on the clarity we gain, right? I firmly believe that. And so with that said, I want to touch on this idea, this concept of doing less. And I invite you to reflect on some of the counterproductive behaviors that may be holding you back, to reflect on the things that you should stop doing or say no to. Now, I know it's easy to feel like saying no is a weakness or that you're missing out on something. But the truth is, saying no can be one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself. Because when you say no, you're not just rejecting something, you're creating space. And you're creating space for what truly matters. So whether you're saying no to a project that doesn't align with your goals or an invitation that doesn't fit your values, each no is a step toward a more intentional life. And here are two examples from my own life to help illustrate this. The first example is 2 years ago, I turned down an opportunity to create a video series for a small network, a growing network that would then air on Roku and Amazon Fire. And to give you a little bit more context, this video series, each video in this series would have been an hour or longer, right? And so there were tons of different ideas that we were throwing around and bouncing back and forth. And one of the ideas that made it to the top of the list was recreating a video series that I was doing here on this YouTube channel where I was helping viewers declutter their space virtually. So viewers would submit photos and videos of their cluttered environment, and I would give them honest and direct advice about their clutter, how to navigate it based on their own circumstances, their own challenges and the hurdles that they're facing, and help them overcome that and declutter that space the best I could virtually, right? So that was one of the ideas that made it to the top of the list. And so this was really exciting, right? This was a cool opportunity. I was honored to be given this opportunity. And it was intriguing to be able to create a video series, a series of video series that would then air on these different platforms. But ultimately, I said no. And I said no because deep down, I knew that it would distract me from my true priorities. And I'll talk more about that here in a moment. Now, the second example that I want to share with you is about 2 months ago or so now, I was presented with an opportunity to audition to host someone else's YouTube channel. So for more context, there was a company who was looking to grow their YouTube presence, and they want someone to be the face of their YouTube channel, to host their videos, to be the person that you watch giving the information. And I was one of the people that they wanted to audition for this spot, for this role, to be the host. And so it sounded simple on paper, right? As I was reading through the email, it sounded super simple. They would write the scripts, they would do the editing, and all I had to do was record. How much more simpler can it get than that, right? But again, I said no. And I said no for various reasons. You know, it didn't really align with my values. It didn't really fit the vision and the direction I saw myself going and where I want to take my business and my platform and where I see myself heading. It didn't really align with that. But also beyond that, a little bit about me is I'm extremely, extremely intentional and purposeful about what I attach my name and my face to. I am, and I always will be. And so to be transparent, to be honest, I didn't really want to attach my name and my face to this situation. I didn't. And so I said no. And so looking back at these examples, I'm reminded that saying no is never easy. There's always that initial discomfort, those moments of second guessing yourself, right? Am I going crazy? Did I make the right decision? What if these moments never come around again? What if I'm letting someone down because I said no? And see, what I keep reminding myself of and what I've realized is that saying no isn't just about what I'm rejecting. It's about creating space for what's important in my life. And so saying no to these opportunities didn't just create more space in my schedule. It didn't just free up my schedule. It created the freedom for me to say yes to things that truly matter. And at the time, that's saying yes to spending more time with my family. That's saying yes to other projects that I'm committed to, that I'm excited about, that I want to see grow, that I want to invest my time into, right? And for me, really, this is where I think the growth happens on our journey. When we choose to say no to the things that aren't serving us, choose to let go of the things that aren't serving us, when we choose to do less rather than do more and more and more, that's where I think the growth happens. And who knows, maybe these opportunities will come around again. Maybe they'll be the exact same opportunities at a different point in my life. Maybe they'll be a little bit bigger. Maybe I'll say yes, maybe I won't. But I think the point that I'm making here is that we should never be afraid to say no, especially when it's not serving us, and especially when it doesn't align with our values. And we want to commit to something else. We want to make space. We want to create space for the other things that are important in our life, especially as a solopreneur, right? This can be a dicey game. It's a true balancing act. Do I say yes or do I say no? You know, I've learned something valuable as I've been building my business this last couple of years. And the thing is this: doing more is not always the right answer. You know, really, this is this is not just true in business. This is true in life. Doing more is not always the right answer. We all have those things in our lives that we resist letting go of, even when we know that it's not serving us or that it's getting in the way of something else. You know, it might be bad habits that you've been holding on to for years, or a relationship that's draining you, or opportunities that you keep saying yes to because you're afraid of missing out on something or letting someone down. You see, letting go of these things is not easy, right? I think that's the underlying message that I'm communicating here. Letting go, saying no, doing less isn't easy. There's always going to be a reason to hold on. There's always going to be a reason to say yes. There's always going to be a reason to do more for the sake of doing more. But the truth is, the longer we hold on to things that aren't serving us, the longer we continue to say yes to things that we're not interested in doing, the longer we continue to do more for the sake of doing more, the more we block ourselves from the clarity and growth we need to move forward. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by the sheer amount of things on your plate, this is the reason why. You're likely holding on to mental clutter, habits, relationships, professional opportunities that are no longer serving you. And you know what? There's an emotional cost to that as well. Holding on to these things will often lead to stress, anxiety, and burnout. And personally, I've felt the weight of this, right? Especially in the early days of building my business, I would always say yes to every opportunity, to every request of my time. But over time, I began to feel overwhelmed, mentally and physically drained, right? I burned out multiple times, and I openly talked about this in past videos as well. You know, it's that constant hustle that kept me in the cycle of doing more for the sake of doing more, but not doing the things that were important to me. And so it wasn't until I started letting go of things, whether it was people, projects, habits, opportunities, certain beliefs, that I started to see real clarity, that I started to think more clearly, right? And so for me, I'm not saying that saying no is always going to be the answer. But what I am saying is that letting go was the key to unlocking the peace and focus I needed to move forward. And that's what I want for you. I don't want to see you filled up with stress. I don't want to see you filled up with anxiety. I don't want to see you burning out over and over again, week after week, month after month. I want more than that for you. And so the unanswered question that we have to talk about now is, well, how do we start doing less? How do we do that? And the answer is so simple, it's going to blow your mind. I promise you. It's so simple, but it's not easy, right? It's simple, but it's not easy. And to start, there are two questions that I want you to ask yourself. Number one, what are some things that if you stopped doing them could improve your life? What are some things that if you stopped doing them could improve your life? And number two, why haven't you stopped already? Why haven't you stopped? Now, if you're someone who enjoys journaling and working through your thoughts with pen and paper, these two questions are great journaling prompts. But if that's not your thing, I just want to encourage you to reflect on these questions. Think deeply about your answer and why your answer is what it is. And then once you have clarity around this, here's the simple part that I was alluding to earlier. All I want you to do is pick one thing from your list and stop doing it. Or pick one thing from your list and say no to it. Now, I know this is easier said than done, right? And I'm sure my demeanor is making it sound simpler than it's going to be. But just take a moment, right? Just take a moment to think about what would happen if you stopped doing that thing, or if you said no to that thing. Would it free up more time in your schedule? Would it bring you more energy? Would it bring you more clarity? What would happen if you stopped? What would happen if you said no? And I'll be the first to admit, right? It's not going to be easy. From my own personal experience, it's not going to be easy. There's going to be some discomfort. There's going to be some second guessing yourself, right? It might be unsettling depending on the situation. But I can tell you from experience that even a small action, like saying no to an unnecessary task, or saying no to a commitment, or saying no to a project that doesn't align with your goals, or an opportunity that doesn't align with your values, saying no can start to shift the direction of your life. And like I said, it's going to feel uncomfortable at first, but it's the first step toward creating space for more of what you actually want, for the things that matter to you. And you know what else? You'll be surprised how much you can accomplish, or how much peace you'll find when you stop doing the things that are no longer serving you. When you stop saying yes all the time, when you stop doing more for the sake of doing more. You know, the luxury of doing less is creating space for what matters to you, right? The luxury of doing less is creating space for what matters to you. And you don't need permission to say no. And you certainly don't need to apologize for choosing to be distraction free. Protect your mental space and prioritize your values. Stay true to you, my friend. See you next time. Peace.